Greetings from Research Triangle region in North Carolina, and today from Connecticut instead of the normal Silicon Valley. This is Content Evolution New World. And Mike, we find you in Connecticut, right?
You do. It's my sister wasn't sure that the weather was going to give us fall foliage here in New England, but it looks pretty nice out here. It's not too cold. Very nice. Very large yards in Connecticut. I'm not used to that.
Very good. Well, we're delighted to have you with us, and we're really pleased to have Guillaume Jandu, or Gigi, right, as he likes to be called, because to learn the pronunciation like I did, I think you either have to have credentials growing up in France, or you have to spend a lot of time with Gigi, right? He is in Japan today, as we find him most of the time, right? Because this is where he lives. He's down near the ocean today, but he's about an hour south of Tokyo. Gigi, it's great to have you with us. You're having a fine day on the water today?
Yes, very good weather. I think autumn is probably the best season, the one I enjoy the most.
It's you live in a really...
The water is still warm, and it's dry. It's getting dry now, so we start seeing the first snow on the Mount Fuji. It's a beautiful season in Japan.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and we're going to have a conversation, right? So if you're expecting to see lots of charts, no charts today, conversation, right? And I first met Gigi when he was running the global brand for Toyota, right? And an introduction was made from a gentleman that I was working with here in the States who worked for Toyota, who was in charge of global knowledge management, right? So that was John Kramer, right? So Gigi, remember John, right?
Of course.
He read me into all of the ins and outs of how Toyota used, some of the things that everyone else used, like Lane, right? Except that, Toyota had invented it and had its own use case, right? Versus the way it had been, used elsewhere. Remarkable career. He's going to tell you, a little bit about it, and has moved from Toyota over into a company that is basically the leader in computer-aided design and computer-aided, management. If you can imagine it, all right, you're going to be able to see it on your screen before you see it in real life, right? And so Dassault Systems, French company, is a powerhouse backbone of what you see on the road from, the Japanese auto manufacturers. It all appears on your screen before it gets made, right? And so he's part of that, and he also runs a kind of an ecosystem of more nimble, smaller companies, right? And we're going to talk about the third road, and that's your idea. So why don't you just, you can tell us more about your background and how you saved a lot of car companies along the way, but the third road, what is the third road in a nutshell? And then let's talk about, why it's such a good idea.
Yes, so well, maybe I should start by introducing...
Go anywhere you want.
Yeah. I want to start by introducing maybe where I come from and why the third road, because the third road is really driven by what I have experienced, particularly in Japan, and particularly in two, I would say, very striking, experiences I had in two periods of my life, which were, which really influenced me a lot.
So we have the amuse-bouche before the main course, which is fine, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. I think I want to explain. So basically, I'm the typical French engineer from Polytechnic. The strange uniform with the strange hat, and I did an MBA at INSEAD a few years later, and my career basically was always in the auto industry. I started at Renault, and I chose, maybe not the typical way. I started by selling cars. So that was, I wanted to meet customers, and I had an experience in almost all the different positions of the supply chain, the value chain of the automotive, from corporate planning, product planning, innovation management. I run the innovation of Renault. I run a cross-functional team to redesign the way R&D resources were managed. I was in charge of a subsidiary in Austria. So I did marketing. I did almost all the positions you can imagine in traditional car. And Carlos Ghosn when Carlos Ghosn joined Renault at the end of the 90s, he asked me to come with him to Japan at the time of the recovery of Nissan. And the Carlos Ghosn of that time was really, I would say, very impressive in the way he managed this recovery, because the recovery was managed in a way that kept the logic of actions of Japanese people, but put some Western I would say spice in the way the strategy was defined. And for me, that was really the best of two worlds, like the combination of having a real strategy, a frame in which the organization would develop itself, and at the same time a lot of freedom. And the Japanese is pretty much organized by bottom-up type of organization, where you have the nemawashi. So people are we are turning around the problem until we find a solution, consensus building. So the reason why Nissan could not transform itself alone was just because of this Japanese way of management. That Azawa-san was the former CEO of Nissan, said we knew everything we had to do, but we couldn't do it because we had this kind of mutual commitment that would not allow us to make those, I would say, decisions. And on the other way, what I learned at my MBA, this very top-down thing, very often it's very far from realities. It's very conceptual, very theoretical, and the buy-in is not there. And the way Carlos Ghosn managed, for example, the midterm plan, was really to get the ideas from the bottom and to have several rounds of bottom-up, top-down, and so on to converge to a midterm plan with limited number of objectives, so very strategic priorities, and at the same time, very strong alignment throughout the organization around those objectives, a lot of transparency, completely aligned HR policy, and that made Nissan in 3 years become the most profitable car maker in the world, coming from bankrupt and just in 3 years, zero debt, more than 11% operating profit, which for mainstream car maker is absolutely remarkable. And I found this way really impressive. And a few years later, I was at that time at Toyota. First, I was in Toyota Europe. I was head of product planning and marketing. So yeah, at Nissan, I was reporting directly to Carlos Ghosn. I was head of product planning and product strategy. So maybe there are some anecdotes I can tell which are quite counterintuitive, but that proved very efficient at the end of the day. And at Toyota, I was first in charge of product planning and marketing in Europe. so reporting to the CEO of Toyota Motor Europe. At the moment when we decided to drop diesel before everybody, at the time where diesel was still making, we are in 2008, so before the Dieselgate, diesel was still making like 70% of European market, and to decide to go to electrification through, at that time, the hybrid, and targeting 50% of hybrid by 2020, which by the way was achieved. And then it was, of course, you remember the tough time of Toyota, the recall campaign, Akio Toyoda going to the US in front of the Congress to have to apologize, starting crying, you know. And so image of Toyota was collapsing, the sales were collapsing, the profit was, there was no more profit, Toyota went into the red. It was just after the Lehman shock. So it was a very tough time. And in Europe, we could manage to recover quite quickly the brand image. And the head of sales and marketing of Toyota asked me to come to Japan, and he said, there was no global marketing at that time. And he said to me, we have to do something for the brand. Just to give you an idea, I was head of marketing of Toyota in Europe in 3.5 years. I didn't even know the name of the head of Toyota marketing in the US. And I had met the head of Toyota, the so-called marketing department, just once in 3.5 years. So there was no real global marketing. And my mission at that time was just to try to organize networking between the different marketing of different regions, which were all led completely independently, and to try to see if there couldn't be some project or some, I would say, synergies that we could imagine. And well, so very different from the way you imagine American companies like Procter & Gamble or Apple, you know, which are very much top down, which even if at Toyota, even the color of the logo, you know, was decided by each distributor. So different taglines, different logo, different. So just something that for I would say the marketing that is, you know that we teach in MBAs is completely, I would say, completely very difficult to imagine, completely alien idea. So and we started talking, and very quickly by listening. So when I say quickly, I'm talking about 6 months. We had agreed on brand pyramid, brand promise, 7 priorities, starting from, for the first time, we are going to do you know, marketing platform for new products. So we decided to do for 2 products, Hilux and Prius, that were going to be launched 3 years later. We decided to have one motor show architecture design, to unify the logo, to unify all the brand identity, to have a real digital strategy, to have common KPIs and so on. So we agreed on that. There were things we could not agree on, and there were reasons. For example, dealer signage, we could not agree. Some regions say, you know, we just ask our dealers to invest, we cannot change that now. Or we could not agree on the tagline. Tagline, you know, same thing. Some distributors say. So I didn't try to force. You know, even some people told me, but it's stupid, you should ask them. I said, no, let's do it the way, bottom up, top down. So we agree, we go to strong consensus on what we want to do. We set the target, you know, at the same time we set the target far enough so people don't feel so committed, but agree on the direction with some quick wins that we need to achieve so that we can demonstrate that we can work together. In just 3 years, we had recovered the brand value according to Interbrand by 70%. And at the same time, we had not only the marketing functions globally, but we had the chief engineer. So each product had its own, you know, what is my, so the brand promise was summarized by a superior peace of mind combined with a sense of Wakudoki. So chief engineer without any instruction from the top, came and saying, this is my walkie-talkie, this is my peace of mind, this is my promise. We had the technical, functional, emotional for each product. We had the design. Vibrant Clarity was the interpretation of walkie-talkie and peace of mind, or vice versa. But we had worked together to have a combined message. We had, of course, product planning, and we had all the marketing with a lot of freedom. And it was a kind of competition between the distributors, between the region, for the one that would implement the most strongly the direction. And I have a few other examples, but those two very striking. Two recoveries from very tough situation. Nissan almost bankrupt, and Toyota had on its core value, which was quality, had lost all the trust from the customer. And in both cases, we could recover. And it's interesting because I compared with at that time I knew all the CMOs of all the major car makers, and I compared with others, and we went without any, I would say, without any implication or direct involvement from the top management, just as a collective team, we had much better result and more involvement, with less control, less top-down, less reporting, just the freedom of action in an agreed or in a collectively built frame. So I'm sure this is not new, and there's been. So I read a lot of literature. I never read that far, but what Carlos Ghosn did at Nissan and what we collectively did at Toyota, inspired me to say, well, why don't we try to conceptualize that? Hence the third road of management. So you understand the third road. Maybe the first road is what we learn in MBA. The second road is what we learn in Japan, very consensual, but very silo and okay. So that's where it came from. So basically that's where it came from. And then I decided that then I moved to Dassault Systèmes. So as Kevin explained, so we are the leader in the virtual twin. So basically we do virtual twin of the body, of molecules for batteries, virtual twin of objects, like the first digital mock-up. So the first plane, developed without a prototype was the 777, already 30 years ago. And now we do that for vaccine against COVID, or we do that so basically we are the leader in this, I would say, innovation era. And what's interesting is that basically this is also a tool that I would have loved to have as the head of marketing at Toyota, because if we had this collaborative tool, this visual tool to develop the campaign, to develop everything we wanted to do, rather than the file-based, I would say, traditional tool that we all know, and I think we could even have gone faster. But this is just a tool. I mean, if the management remains either too top down or too bottom up, the too top down, you will miss the implication of people, will miss the I would say the motivation, would miss the ideas coming from everywhere. The bottom up will miss the ability to transform itself, because too conservative in a way, and we see it from many Japanese companies which are struggling now, too conservative, because any breakthrough in the way of working, is difficult to do in a very bottom up, where people try to keep their own territory. So basically, that's what I want to say, and maybe Kevin has some questions on how.
You clearly are told a very interesting story, and you've had a very interesting, road yourself as a professional. You mentioned one of the terms that is kind of core to your observation, which in Japan, nemawashi, right? So nemawashi, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, is kind of a related to consensus. It's building, a common point of view, and until that point of view has been reached, you don't do anything, right? And the fact is that if you're trying to innovate, that can slow you down a lot, right? Waiting for everybody to get on the same page, right? And so you're looking at this from both dimensions, right? That if that tops down, well, maybe people don't buy in and there's some resistance, and bottoms up in its entirety is perhaps too slow, right? And that your notion, your third road is we need both. We need a both and instead of an either or, right?
Yes.
Is that a good summary of your philosophy?
Yes. I think it's exactly that. I think the nemawashi is something. But I did an MBA and I did the internal executive development program of Toyota, which is the program for all top executive at Toyota, where you learn the Toyota business practice. So the Toyota business practice is pretty much made around this nemawashi, or this idea of consensus, with ability sometime, what they call business revolution, BR, when sometimes they try to push the system, to challenge the system, but it's not structured. For me, it was an incredible shock coming from Nissan to see that Toyota, the process at Toyota, the decision process at Toyota exists, but they are not structured. They are pretty much, they are pretty much, how to say, it's kind of consensual. And so some decisions are made. Of course, Toyota is a great company, honestly. And when Toyota decides to do something, but they are more in the reaction mode rather than in the proaction mode.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why it worked, this brand activity, is because we started with what we call the burning platform. So we all agreed, basically the burning platform. So we are in 2011. Just imagine, so you had the Lehman shock, you had the recall, the companies losing money, brands like Volkswagen in Europe or Hyundai globally are catching up. The products are not, the recently launched products are not successful. Then comes 2011, you have the tsunami. So all you remember the earthquake and the tsunami in Japan.
Yeah.
So all the production has been completely disrupted during 6 months. So the situation is really incredibly tough. So there is this idea of the burning platform, which says we all agree we have to do something. And I think that was the beginning. And I think in the Nissan case also, that was the beginning. So I think that as long as people don't have, are in the denial or don't think they have to change, I think it's extremely difficult to start. So that was the starting point.
As I remember, there was a very strong desire inside of Toyota to best General Motors in terms of becoming the highest volume producer of vehicles on the planet. And when Toyoda-san, right, because that's the family name, right, that started the company, I don't remember, was he grandson?
He's actually he's the grandson of the founder of the auto branch, but the great grandson of the founder of the company. They started with automatic looms, and they made fortune with the automatic looms. They sold the patent to the UK in the beginning of 20th century, and the grandfather said, "Oh, that's automatic loom, that's nice, but the future is car," and they started developing the car in the 30s.
So as I remember, one of the primary things that he said when he came into the job, or very shortly thereafter, was we've lost sight of building the best car on the planet, right? Highest quality, not necessarily the highest priced, right? But that whatever we're going to do, we need to refocus on not volume, but quality, right? And that was also, in my humble opinion, part of the turnaround was embracing that people needed to love their car, right? Versus just turning out a lot of them. Right? And so that for a person who is in charge of brand, that's a godsend, to have somebody at the top of the company doing that.
But I'm a product guy. I was head of product of product planning of the most important, the biggest in volume car at Renault a long time ago. I was head of innovation and product planning. I was the top of product planning of Nissan, then of Toyota Europe. So product, there is no, as Carlos Ghosn used to say, there is no problem that a good product cannot solve. So he said that. So that was the idea of a product. Maybe now I wouldn't say product. I would say that's a good customer experience, because I think we are moving from product to experience. But at least at that time, good product. And I totally agree. I think he even changed the way the top management is rewarded from financial incentive to or incentive based on finance sort of result to really product quality and product attractiveness. I think that was one of the key elements, and that made probably also the chief engineer ready to really embrace this brand journey that we had started. That was completely aligned. When I arrived at Toyota, I started speaking to top executives, and I said, I'm in charge of the brand. Which brand? Toyota. But Toyota is not a brand. What do you mean Toyota? No, Lexus is a brand. Toyota is not a brand. Toyota is a car for everybody. So we are not a brand. So first I had to explain what a brand is and explain that Toyota was a brand. For them, a brand is like, Gucci, Hermes. Those are brands. But Toyota is not a brand. So I explained that even a cheap brand, even affordable brand is a brand. If you buy, I don't know, Levi's or maybe basic Dove or soap, whatever, it's a brand. So I had to explain first to do the education of the basic brand. I was supported by Jim Stengel, who was our consultant. He used to be the global CMO of Procter & Gamble. So we had a very good time together. I was lucky to have plenty of very good professors in my career. I think Carlos Ghosn at that time, and you mentioned Akio Toyoda, but plenty of others. And Jim Stengel.
Stengel was one of the people that really learned a lot spending time in Japan and in Asia, right? Because he said when he was at Procter & Gamble, said, we don't know anything about packaging, right? You do got to come over here to Japan where they gift wrap apples in the grocery store, right? And so he took that ethos back to, the parent company, and that created a capacity to consult with you after he, left that position, which was great. Now you mentioned, the movement from product to experience. You're right on the leading edge right now of thinking about and helping people imagine not owning a car, right? This notion of mobility versus cars or particular vehicles that, we're moving toward mobility systems, right? And that perhaps you'd like to own one, and that's fine. But, perhaps, you're part of a cooperative, right? And so you're there, or you have a membership and a car arrives when you want one, right? Tell us how, you imagine the transition from the experience that people have today to the one that is, about to happen in the next decade.
Yeah, I think we are at the moment, a rare moment where you have at the crossroads where you have the convergence of different elements. I think from one hand you have a young generation that has very different relationship with ownership. I mean, that all the research, I mean, I think everybody knows, but all the research we did were really showed that. I mean, not all young people. I still the world and is really fragmented. So in terms of trends, in terms of customer, I think, and it's fragmented. It used to be fragmented geographically. Now the geographic fragmentation still exists, but you will find all the kind of trends in all markets. So it's becoming a very complicated matrix where you have to be global to understand the global trend, and at the same time you have to be local to understand the different weight of all those trends in a local market. So I think the solution is going to be much more local in the future. But you still need to understand the global, but it's going to be local. But I think one is customer trend. The customer trend is, and we see it in Europe, we see it in Japan, where when people have the ability to drop ownership of the car, a big proportion does. And for example, in Tokyo, it's very striking. You see that when you look in the street, you see most of the cars are, except the commercial vehicles, trucks, and the commercial vehicles, not trucks in the American sense, but trucks in terms of lorries. I mean, what in English would call lorries, or taxis, or company vehicles. Most of the private vehicles now are becoming premium vehicles. So that's so people buy, either they give up the car or they keep a car as a status symbol. So you start seeing that, which was not maybe the case. You start seeing it in Europe. I mean, it's very clear in Europe. In London, Zipcar, for example, you have 6 months waiting list, and more people. I know in London they give up. Paris is the same. So you have that still in the big cities, because it has not been outside the big cities. I think it's still very difficult to live without a car. But you see this trend, at least from a customer side. Then you have environmental side. I mean, obviously, whether we like it or not, I think the decarbonization, or the zero carbon, the zero carbon is something that will be more and more on the agenda of companies, countries, and all types of organizations, and we cannot ignore that. And we know today, 82% of the energy consumed in the world is fossil. So which means that people who say that the wind turbine and the photovoltaic is going to replace, they just represent 2% of the energy consumed in the world. So it's still a big, long journey before electricity, before everything gets electric and electricity is clean. So which means that we will need to live in a period where even electric cars will have to be more efficient. So first, customer. Second, environment. And the third one is technology. I mean, technology, the autonomous car, I know there is a lot of debate if you are in the Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, about the crews that sometimes hit the fire trucks and so on. But
people.
But the fact is, they are already far safer than human-driven vehicles. Oh, yeah. And it's going to continue to improve. So, just think, 3,500 people die every day in traffic accidents. 3,500. Yep. And nobody speaks about it. If you have one injured person in San Francisco, it's the headline everywhere in the world. So it's just, of course, that people are not rational. We know that. But from a rational point of view, we know that this is going to come. And it's coming, today it was announced, I think GM and Honda and Cruise announced that they will introduce those so-called robotaxi in Tokyo by early 26. So this is not, and if you see what's happening in China, you would be at least surprised, if not a little worried, because I think China is even one step further already today. They took everybody by surprise with the electric cars, their battery technology, but they are already one step beyond, and companies like Xiaomi, Huawei, Foxconn, they all have their operating system, their platforms. The cars are full of screens. It's a completely different experience. You have thousands of robotaxi already operating in China, and you have alignment between government and those companies. So there will be no question about the regulation, if you understand what I mean. The day they decide to go, they will go. If people agree or don't agree, they will go.
We're doing
very
this,
different from the US. Very different.
Your social credit score is going down, right?
So you have this combination: people, environment, and regulator, and technology. So I would say, I've been saying for almost 10 years that 25 will probably be the tipping point where this is going to start appearing, and you will start having mobility services that will be more efficient in terms of energy, that will be much cheaper, convenient, and plenty of service. After that, commuting, if you can work, you will be paid during your commuting. So if you have 1 hour commuting per day, you will have 1 hour to spend with your kids more, because you will start your day not when you arrive in the office, but when you leave your home. So just an advantage, as to say, well, not only is it going to cost you maybe 1/3 of what it used to cost you, but on top of that, you're going to be paid during your commuting time. I think that's a little attractive, value proposition, for example. And you will emit less, you will consume less electricity, so you will emit less CO2 at the end of the day. So I think we are entering this period. After that, and then I go back to the third road. It's not going to be today. You have the same car everywhere. Even Elon Musk says, with 4 cars I can cover all the market. I have some doubt. I think that we are going to see exactly the opposite. I think we are going to see plenty of different products, plenty of different experiences, because the life in Mumbai, the infrastructure in Mumbai is not the one in San Francisco. It's not the one in Connecticut. It's not the one it's not the one in the countryside in France or in Tokyo. So I think you will have different infrastructure, different regulation, different political opinion, different services, different habits, different customer. So at the end of the day, you will have a lot of different services experiences that are going to appear. And that's why it's important to have those tools, which I described, that Dassault Systèmes does in a virtual twin, using artificial intelligence, generative design. So you can say, okay, you can just system engineering, because you will have to have all those systems connected together, because you want to connect, for example, I was talking about commuting. You want to connect your transportation system with your schedule system in the company, because today the trains or whatever, the infrastructure are underutilized of peak hours, and they are too small at peak hours. So just imagine if you can say to people or coordinate and say, okay, you start your first meeting, you'll do it at home, and at 10 a.m. I will send a car that will bring you to the office. And rather than coming 3 days in a row for a 1 hour meeting, I will regroup that and that. So plenty of new services are going to come with artificial intelligence, with system engineering, with, this is going to come. And I think people are expecting it. I think the regulatory are going to push for it. I can tell you in Europe, the big cities in Europe, the only thing they are waiting for is autonomous car to be ready to forbid individual cars in the cities. And I think that's going to come. It's not going to come at the same speed everywhere. And don't expect developing countries to come later. They might even leapfrog, because they leapfrog in many domains, in energy, they leapfrog in communication, in banking system, and they will leapfrog, I think, there too. For example, you can imagine small village in Africa, off-grid, a solar panel with a shared vehicle, electric shared vehicle, for the village, that could come at a much cheaper price than IC internal combustion engine car with all the infrastructure and or with the grid and so on. So plenty of solutions are going to come, and they're going to come from everywhere. So the top down won't work. That's my message.
Okay, so this is a good place to invite our guests who are with us who've been listening to join in and ask some questions. I think this is a really intriguing future that we're about to be in. And frankly, Gigi, I'm looking forward to the day that I don't have to own a car, right? That it's just available when I need it. And I'm looking forward to the swarming, right? As opposed to, I want to convert my garage to something else, right? Some other great, I want that to be an art studio as soon as I can divest it of vehicles. Who's got a question for Gigi?
I do.
Hi, Doug. Oh, and Mike. Okay, so I'm going to go to Doug, then to you, Mike. Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, so really enjoyed your talk. Unfortunately, I came in about 20 minutes late. I was at another meeting. But I was with the 5G Automobile Association for 4 years when I was with Nokia, looking at how to roll out cellular V2X technology. And looking at ADAS technology. So, you know, your comment about bottom-up approach, you know, it's small incremental steps, you know, adding ADAS technology, I'm really a big believer in that. You know, then the other approach is the Tesla, right, where they're trying to do full self-driving, everything's contained within the car. You just throw enough processing power at the car and you'll get full self-driving. So I guess my question to you is, and maybe you talked about this already, is when do you think you know, the systems will be in play? Like so, how, you know, there's ADAS getting better and better, right? That you have lane keeping and adaptive cruise control and emergency braking and so forth, going, you know, bottom up, right? And then you have the full self-driving where, you know, I don't even have to think about anything, right? You know, it appears that you're thinking bottom up, you know, versus the Tesla full self-driving. You know, do you have a date on when you think, you know, where I can just get in my car and I don't have to think about driving?
Yeah, I think there is in the definition, you know, you have the L1 to L5.
Exactly, yeah.
And there is a big confusion because L4 has two meanings. L4 means I own a car, and if the car tells me, "Oh, now you're on the highway, you know you can sleep, and I will wake you up when I need you, and you can do other things." So it's eyes off, hands off, you know, it's called. That's L4. But the other L4 is the one you see in San Francisco or now in Phoenix, Los Angeles, many other cities. It's the geofenced, completely autonomous. But you need for that to have a good mapping system. And when you have the good mapping system, then the car is L4. In that case, the car, you don't own the car. Basically, you use the car, and that already exists. I think this is tomorrow. I think more than a technological. I think then you have the L5. The L5, you have a car that can go everywhere, whether you have snow, it rains, wind, whatever, off-road, on-road. The car can go everywhere and can drive you like you would drive, simply in much better way. I don't believe in L5. I think that will never happen. I think never. It will happen maybe one day, but I think the revolution is going to be the L4, and not the L4 for people who own the car, but the L4 in geofence, and the geofence will get bigger and bigger, and at the end of the day, they will cover the entire world, entire planet, and then you will have services. But people will. Then you can imagine that you call a car as Kevin, and in the dream of Kevin, but you will call a car depending on the need you have. So if you are in the city, maybe it can be a small pod, maybe just 500 kilogram, so 1,000 pounds less, or even less car that doesn't need to go very fast, that is light, that is and that will just consume half or 1/3 of electricity you would use in your electric SUV. And then in the car, maybe you can play your games, watch movie, or speak with friends, work, whatever you want, or do your gym, whatever you want. That's where I see things coming very quickly, because this already exists, and this technically it's already mature. Now I said 25 would be the beginning of the implementation at scale, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, in those pod, you get safety not from making it so darn impact resistant. It's that you've built in the system so that they know how to distance themselves, exactly right. And the safety is built into the ability to do that spacing, and that they will never hit each other, because there's, it's like a dog fence, right? You've got the sensors, and they know when to stop. They know when to distance themselves, and so that's where the safety comes from, right?
Yeah. One comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from that intelligence of the system, right? As opposed to, boy, we better build, something that's a damn tank, because the human that's driving it, could get in trouble, right?
Yeah, the one comment go up to recent, like 3 years ago, we were at 36,000 people dying on the road here in the United States. It's now up into the 42,000, and it's because people are speeding more, doing drugs, distracted, drunk. And so unfortunately, humans are more irresponsible, and that's causing more accidents.
Yes.
Now they want to do all of the things that you just said, but we don't want them to drive.
Yes. Well,
drive.
Yeah. So I'm going to invite Mike in. Mike, you had a question? You on mute? I don't know.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, Gigi. This is Mike. It's more of a strategic question about the whole approach of the third road. How does the organization who implements this avoid the syndrome, right? Or the result of, having not the best of each, right? It's not the best of the top down. It's not the best of the bottoms up, right? You get the jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, how do you in the model avoid that kind of that fate?
Okay. But having studied those and other examples, and also read a lot of books, I did a little the prerequisites. So it's not a recipe. It's not. It's just what you need to think if you want to avoid either the weak consensus, the strategy that is not a strategy because you want to please everybody, or the imposed strategy that is apparently accepted, but that is not in reality. So you go back to one of the two systems, more or less. So I said I put some. What I say there are 3 steps. The first one is what I call plan the ground for success, and in that one I say you don't, again, it's not a recipe, so you don't have to have all of the ingredients. It's just a kind of principles of what I have observed. So the first one, I think it's you need to have diversity. I don't think you can have good strategy if you don't have diversity in the strategy. I think if you have only one group of people, whatever groups, you're not going to innovate. You're going just to do always the same thing.
Right.
You can innovate by accident. You can have one leader. I mean, you can have one Elon Musk, but I don't think this is replicable. And I don't think it is not only replicable, but on the long run, I think you have the risk of finally, I think Elon Musk could be the bottleneck of Tesla at some point. You were talking about because he cannot say everything, decide everything. So I think that's the first thing. So diversity. I think the second one I already mentioned is the combination of logic. So you need to accept, very often people say, oh, this company has a culture. I think the companies have values. I don't think companies have one culture. I think people working in sales in South America, they don't have the same culture as people working in R&D in the suburb of Tokyo. I think that's not so. I think you have to respect the combination of culture, and that was the strength of Carlos Ghosn, for example, that he really respected at that time. I'm talking about that period, so don't misunderstand that. There was another Carlos Ghosn after we.
Right, understood.
So at that time, he really respected the Japanese logic of action, and he didn't. And there are some anecdotes where the head of R&D, he wanted to keep things that were completely irrational. But for him, it was kind of maybe the proud of their engineering the thing. So you have to accept that sometimes to be irrational, because they will find other way to achieve the result if you let them do, and they will in return help you achieve your objective. So I think that's very important. So the mutual respect is the second one. The third condition, I think the HR policy. The HR policy, particularly in terms of rewards. If you can reward people on common objective, if you can reward people align on, if you tell people, okay, I ask you to take risk, to be innovative and so on, and then you just give them bonus based on the stock option, whatever, based on the bottom line or the cost cutting of the company, I think that's not rational. So that's the first thing I would say. That's the first step. The second step is to create a virtual organization, and I think I didn't mention it because I think there are so many things to say, but with the virtual twin, with artificial intelligence, I think this trend towards the network organization is going to be even stronger. And that the top down, the bottom up, are definitely going to be outdated. So and there are also ecosystem. I didn't talk about it, also ecosystem. But so the second one is the organization, and maybe to answer your question, maybe the most important is the leadership.
Right.
You need to have a leader, and I don't want to be but the way I try to be the leader is never to be in front. People say the leader needs to be in front, he needs to lead by example. No, I was listening. I was making sure that we go to the right and strong consensus, not the weak consensus. And I was trying to always put the people who had the idea to give them the leadership on some particular topic. So each region had the co-leadership of every priority, whether it was a product, whether it was digital, whether it was. So I said the region shouldn't be the regional implementation body. That they should also be the leader of some global thing. Then you have a healthy competition between the region. So leadership is very important. The second one is just the one I said, the center of excellence. You need to have center of excellence. So we had some in Toyota. We had some what I say islands of knowledge, and we transform them into center of excellence. So and those center of excellence, and I can tell you when the head of Brazil and South America told me, he was so late on digital, and he became so good so quickly because he wanted to copy the best in which was at that time Europe, and to copy what they were doing and so on, and to be better than them. So there was this kind of center of excellence. And the third one is that what I said, you have the quick wins and the rituals. So the meeting. And the last one is the build the common tools and the methodology. So I talked already about digital tools, but you have we had a charter, we had ideal, we had long-term vision. So as I said, we started with a long-term vision. It's easier to start with a long-term vision, and we had a common language. So that's so important. Innovation doesn't mean the same thing to everybody.
Right.
Strategy doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. Unique selling proposition doesn't mean USP. completely different. So you have to agree on the common language, and basically that's how you do it. So there is not one recipe. Again, it's more principle, and that's what I want to develop now in the third road. For this, for innovation management, for future mobility. So that's my.
So Mike, thanks for that question. We're coming up to the top of the hour. I'm going to ask Mark Prinsky to join the conversation, and then we're going to wrap this call with some final thoughts from you, Gigi. Mark?
Thank you, Gigi. This was wonderful, and I haven't heard this. My background is HBS and BCG, but now I'm in education and thinking about young people. And so I want to take the things that you're saying and try to map them into a system for raising young people, which is not necessarily education as we know it. And so that's where I go with these ideas. I see some of the things I do as being like Deming, when, at the time when nobody would listen to him in the US and he had to go to Japan to get quality stuff get going. But we're definitely thinking of all the things you said, the new kids, the new environment, the new, all those things say we have to do something different. And for me, it's moving from learning to accomplishment and impact. And so I'd love to talk to you separately about that. I also have the same connections of Japan and France and America that you have. So this would be a lot of fun. I'm just saying, I haven't heard a vision this big since my days at BCG. So I appreciate it.
All right. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I can tell you that, having known Gigi for a while now, what would you say? A little bit over a decade right now, Gigi?
Yes.
That the way that he sees things and the way that he pulls them together is a quality of mind, that we've discussed right in the past. And he really does have a remarkable capability to see a large picture, but then to frame it in a way that people can understand, right? As opposed to, it's so big that nobody could possibly put all these pieces together. So it's really great. Gigi, why don't you bring us home? A couple of closing thoughts, and you have our thanks for joining us today. I'm sure that the people who weren't with us, who are part of our distribution, will really enjoy hearing your thinking. And we welcome you, by the way, as one of our newest members to Content Evolution. We're delighted to have you in the Federation.
No, well, I think we are living a fantastic moment because there are plenty of things that are accelerating. So for me, it's I think we would never think that all the things that when Carlos Ghosn was managing 20 years ago, this recovery, this turnaround of Nissan would happen that way. And now you had the COVID, so people start working from home. So you start seeing that you have acceleration in the environmental pressure, and then artificial intelligence. Just imagine how artificial intelligence is going to change not only the way people work, but the way the CEO has to think their role. Just imagine how irrelevant the top down will become when everybody will have access. The other day I was seeing I won't say which company. I was looking at the presentation from a company from the strategic plan, and I found it so so expected. I asked ChatGPT. I'm the CEO of what would you recommend? And ChatGPT said it was exactly what the guy was saying. So I was even wondering if the CEO had not asked ChatGPT to do his strategy. So I think that it's going to be completely different. The silos are going to be broken. I'm also co-managing director of this Software Republic, which is ecosystem for future mobility. and we decided last December to do a concept car based on existing concept car, which we presented at Vivatech, which is the European equivalent of CES, in 6 months with 6 startups and 6 companies, just one car maker, no other company coming from the auto sector. We could develop the car and world premiere its virtual twin, you know, and make the test of V2X or you know all the things you can imagine. I would have never expected. I would have never imagined that in my past career in the automotive sector. So you start seeing things that, you know, big waves of innovation. So open ecosystem, artificial intelligence, all those things, virtual twin, all those things are completely going to change the way I think the big companies. So the third road is going to evolve, continue to evolve. So I really thank you for supporting me, helping me, giving me ideas, you know, towards young people, towards whatever, you know. And I think it's very exciting time. I feel younger than ever.
And every time I connect with you, I'm refreshed too. Gigi, thank you for being with us today. Everyone,
thank you very much for your time.
joining this edition of Content Evolution New World, and everything you do, be intentional. Take care. And Gigi, I look forward to seeing you in Kamakura on the ocean sometime soon.
Please come. It's beautiful.
All right. Take care. Bye now.